Welcome all. In this video I will explain variables and data types. So what we have seen until now is how to print text on the console. And to print text on the console we use cout, then following with two less than signs, and then two double quotes. And the text that we put between those double quotes is being printed on the console. So for example, hello world with an exclamation mark. So if you run this program, we will see that the text hello world is being printed on the console. And often what we want is also go the other way around, meaning now we print text to the console, but often we also want to retrieve data from the console. And the data that we retrieve from the console, we have to store in so-called variables. Yeah, so a variable is a placeholder where we can store data. And for variables, we have to firstly think about the type of data that we want to store in the variable. And that's what we call a data type. Yeah, so each variable that we create, we have to specify its data type, meaning the type of data that we want to store in this variable. And we have different types of data. There are many, but in this course we will start with several of these data types. And the first one is called a string. And a string is a piece of text. So if we create a variable of type string, we can store a piece of text in this variable. And the text is always being typed between double quotes. So for example, hello world. The next one is an int, so data type int, and with an int we can store a whole number. Yeah, so if we want to create a variable where we can store a whole number, we have to use the data type int. If we want to store a number with decimals, we have to use the data type double. And last, for now, we have the data type char. And with a char, we can store a single character in this variable. And the character is always typed between single quotes. So, for example, K with two single quotes around it. So these are the different data types for now. So again, we have a string. So in a string, we can store a piece of text. We have an int. So if we create a variable of data type int, we can store a whole number. If we want to store a number with decimals, we have to use the data type double. And finally, when we want to store a single character, we can use the data type char. And the char is always being typed between single quotes. So let's now have a look how to create a variable. And therefore we have to use the following syntax. So we always start by defining its data type, and then the name of the variable follows. And finally a semicolon. Yeah, so when we create a variable, we have to think about its data type, and then we give the variable a certain name. And for the name holds that you have to use a useful name, so you know what type of data is being stored in this variable. So let's give an example. So for example, if we want to store the age of a person, we have to use the data type integer, because the age is expressed as a whole number. So we type int, yeah, because that's the data type. And then we have to think about a useful name. So we will use the word age, because we want to store the age of a person. And then end with a semicolon. Yeah, so this is a variable where we can store a whole number. And the number that we store in this variable is the age of a person. For example, if we want to store the name of a person, we have to first think about the data type. In this case, it would be a string, because a name is a piece of text. So we start the line, the statement, with a string. And then we have to think about a useful name, and since we want to store a name of a person, we use the name of the variable name. And then end with a semicolon. So that's it for this video. So we have seen which different types of data we can store in a variable, and also how to create a variable.